Hello, dear ones. Today it's about the ultimate remedy that has the potential not only to heal each one of us, but to solve all the problems of the world, namely, unconditional love. A warm welcome to Soul Tapping. Today it's about unconditional love. This is the greatest remedy that exists in the universe. That's why it's so important that we learn to love ourselves during depression. Because one of the main causes of depression is that we received too little of it in our childhood. Too little unconditional love. How much we would have wished to be accepted just as we are. As children, we are raised, which means we are actually constantly corrected in some way. So, it is made very clear to us when we are okay and when we are not okay. That's the experience we all have had. We have learned that love always has some conditions. Love is always tied to conditions in upbringing, for example, to achievements, good grades, being compliant, being good, doing what the parents approve of. And for that, there is love. And if you are not like that, if you have your own mind, your own will, your own ideas about how the world should be or how you are allowed to be, then, as children, we all somehow feel that we receive less love. And when we are in therapy and become aware of all that might have gone wrong in our childhood, in the sense that we were not accepted as we were, then it can happen that we suddenly have huge resentments within us and internally blame our parents greatly for not being the way parents should have been. And it is not easy at all to forgive one's own parents. However, it is a huge part of healing to come to forgiveness and to forgive those who, well, simply didn't know any better and did things that were not good for us. And today, I would like to explore with you a bit, how is it for you? Can you give unconditional love? I believe it's easiest when you have children. So, I'm just going to address those of you who have children, but maybe there are also some among you who don't have children, but let's say pets or something like that. There, it's a very similar feeling. That's where it's easiest for us to feel unconditional love. So if you've ever held a newborn in your arms, you can't help but love this child unconditionally because it is still so innocent. It has never behaved wrongly because it has never behaved at all in that sense. And we can still do that. So newborns themselves can do that. So when we came into the world as little babies, we could still do that too. We could love unconditionally, and we were loved unconditionally. That means it's already in our nature. In principle, we can do that. It's just somehow been overshadowed. But if you imagine, when you perhaps had your child, and then at some point, it was no longer so small and cute, but then it started throwing itself on the floor in the supermarket, screaming for candy. Or later, it didn't do its homework, or much later, it came home completely drunk at some point. So, yes, at some point, this unconditional love starts to crumble. And somehow, we no longer agree with what our child is doing. And somehow, that feeling that was there at the beginning is no longer present. With a newborn, you have this feeling of awe towards the miracle of life, that suddenly this child is in the world. And this feeling of awe towards the wonders of nature is no longer there when the child talks back cheekily. I think all of us as parents know that it's hard to maintain that feeling. And it's even more difficult when it comes to the love for your partner. With children, it's still manageable. There's this parental instinct. It's innate. That makes you love your children automatically. But when your partner or partners don't behave the way you would like, according to your expectations, well, admit it to yourself. Then it's really hard with unconditional love. So, I think we all need to be aware of this. Basically, it doesn't matter who it's about. Whether it's about your own children or your own parents, or your partner, or colleagues, friends, or any strangers out there. The people who, let's say, behave exactly as we think is right, we somehow like them more. And those out there who don't behave that way, whom we would label as idiots or something, we don't like them as much. And we don't treat them as nicely either. Why is that? So, I think what stands in the way are our own ideas. That's what we learned in our childhood. Through parents, society, and school, we learned how one should be, and how one shouldn't be, what's right and what's wrong, and so on. And, unfortunately, it's different for every person. Everyone has learned something different. Everyone has different ideas about how one should behave. And that's why it somehow doesn't fit together. That means, basically, the only reason we can't achieve this unconditional love, really, it's our patterns of judgment. These are thoughts, nothing more. These are constructs that we have adopted, which we might not even agree with ourselves. But that's just how we learned it. And we should question that. So what personal judgments do you have? What expectations do you have? What ideas do you have about how, for example, your partner should behave? And you don't allow anything else. And suddenly your love is full of conditions. So, I always find this term unconditional love, it sounds like it's a special subform, like a peculiarity, a subform of love. But isn't it actually the other way around? Isn't it actually really strange to love someone sometimes and not at other times? And that you only love them if they behave in a certain way or achieve something, or something else, and not on the other side. Isn't it more that this is unusual? So, I believe the way we come into the world, we are full to the brim with unconditional love and receiving it back as well. Wouldn't it be the goal for us to return to that? I believe that this is something that is almost essential for survival in today's world. For us as humans, I believe that we are at a kind of crossroads right now. Because now, especially this year 2020, has made so much visible that is wrong here. And starting with the division of society, for example, that we have split into two camps within a year where we are tearing each other down and insulting each other. Some say COVID idiots or conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hats. The others say, sheeple, you haven't noticed anything yet. You know I'm talking about. Instead of somehow thinking about the fact that every person always has a certain reason for their behavior. And this reason usually lies in their past. Every person carries a backpack from their past, filled with burdens. Every person has different fears. This is especially true in relation to this corona time. Some are afraid about health, others are afraid of unemployment. The next person is afraid for their freedom. And I believe we should all become aware that we are all, at our core, unconditional love, and that we have all gone through different lives, through different upbringings. And that's why we now have different people with different ways of thinking and ideas. Maybe it could help us if, before we judge someone else, we take a moment to think about why the other person thinks, speaks, or behaves that way, because they have a reason. Every behavior in this world has a specific reason. Because there are no evil people in the world. Well, I don't believe in that. I also don't believe that there are fools or idiots or anything like that. That doesn't exist. There is always a comprehensible, logical reason for another person's behavior. And I believe it would help all of us if we trained ourselves, when faced with someone else's behavior that puts us on the defensive and makes us think, and we're just about to judge them, to remind ourselves that this person carries a backpack of personal past stories, and everyone has a wounded child within them. Yes, because no one had a perfect childhood. We've all gone through not receiving that unconditional love at some point. Everyone carries a wound within them. And I believe if we want to save ourselves as humans and this planet, so to speak, then we all need to return to unconditional love. And that means towards other people and, most importantly, towards ourselves. That is the topic of depression. That is one aspect of depression, with many other topics surrounding it that are very individual. But self-love is the theme of depression, and we need to relearn it by finally not condemning our own behavior, but by considering that there is a reason why our wounded inner child is currently feeling triggered and is reminded that it so desperately wants to be loved unconditionally. Whenever you feel pain inside, your inner child is reminding you that you want to be loved unconditionally. So, do that. To heal. Love yourself unconditionally. And love others unconditionally. I didn't grow up religious, Catholic, or anything like that, but I truly believe that what Jesus said is the absolute truth. So love your neighbor, no matter who they are, no matter what they have done wrong, because they have a reason for their behavior. And I believe we should take that as an example in today's times. If everyone in the world would set out to return to unconditional love, I believe we would have made it. I believe then we are through the crisis. And you can return to that, but it requires practice. It requires training. And I want to invite you today to start with this training. For your sake and for the sake of the world. You can contribute to the healing of the planet by starting with yourself. That's it. We all have to start with ourselves. And you can practice this, for example, by starting where it is easiest. So with small children and animals, for example, go into nature, hug a tree. Hug your dog, your cat, or whatever, and do it consciously. By consciously training yourself to feel the emotion of loving someone unconditionally. If you have a dog and it's already very old, and it's already blind, and only has 3 legs left, you can still love it. That's exactly the feeling we're talking about, loving it anyway. And if you practice and train this, then eventually you can apply it to yourself as well. I have also trained myself to do this. I trained myself through EFT. Yes, through these phrases that we keep repeating. No matter what is inside me right now, no matter what is outside, no matter what problems I have. And I love myself anyway. I still love myself. I don't have to be perfect for that. I don't have to achieve anything. I don't have to accomplish anything. I don't have to look great. I can still love myself. It's possible. It's just a matter of practice. And yes, I invite you to practice it. You're welcome to come to my coaching, and we can practice it together. At first, it's a bit difficult because it's so unfamiliar and unusual. And because you still have the judgment patterns, they are so deeply ingrained here, this self-deprecation. But you can overcome it. They are just thoughts. And they are programmed, and you can deprogram them. So, return with us to unconditional love, and I'm sure the world will change, and most importantly, your life will change. Take care, my dear ones. Feel free to like my video as always, subscribe to my channel, or take a look at my website at www.seelenklopfen.de. And maybe we'll see each other sometime. See you then. Goodbye.